A little late, but it's supposed to start our meeting at 7:30, but it's okay because it's. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Am I in? Nice to see y'all. Let's see if we get the agenda. Let's see. Hold on. I think I'm in. I guess I can see the agenda. Okay, I guess I'm in. Okay. We're running a little bit behind, but we're going to get started with our council meeting. So if there's anyone here that wanted to sign in for citizens input, you can do that at this time. Citizens input. Are you on there? Are we good, or are we in or out? We good to go? Porky, stick his. What's up? We ain't starting the year off here. Just. Yeah. How about, is there a plug in there? That's all right. That's good. It's perfect. All right, now we're ready to go. Whoop. Everybody here. All right, we're ready. I'll call this meeting to order on Monday, December the 7th, Pearl Harbor Day 2015. I want to welcome everyone. Sorry we're running a little bit behind. Tonight we have Pastor Corey Hallett from the Cover Bridge Church. I hope. Yes, there he is right there. I'm sorry he had to wait. He's going to come forward and give us our invocation and lead us in the pledge of flag. So would everyone please rise?
All right, let's pray together. Father, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for life. We thank you for this privilege to meet here tonight. We pray blessing on this meeting. Lord, I pray for these leaders of this great city. Pray for wisdom as decisions are made. And we pray that we would give you all the honor and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Let's pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Cover Bridge Church is located at 225 Fontaine Road off the east-west connector. So I'm sure if you're looking for a church, or they'd love to have you. Agenda changes. I don't think we have any. Under the mayoral report is a International City School of Ballet and introduction of announcement of highlights of the Nutcracker performance. I understand Steve Ciaccio is going to enlighten us on this.
Yes, sir. In the interest of time, what I'd like to do is introduce Idella Moore. Idella is a resident of Smyrna, knows the ballet world, and is a producer with the city of the function that is happening at Campbell High School this Sunday. So without further ado, Idella, if I could have you come up and introduce these good people.
Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm really pleased to be here. I moved to Smyrna in 2002. And except for a stint in New York, I've been a resident. I've always maintained my house here. I've been involved in the ballet world for 20 years as a parent of a very passionate ballet dancer, as a parent volunteer, and an employee, both at the Atlanta Ballet and at the most prestigious ballet school in the country, the School of American Ballet in Lincoln Center, which was my most recent job. I've known Journée O'Quinn for about 7 years. Never failed to be impressed with her. Her reputation in ballet precedes her, not just in Georgia, but across the country and in Canada. When I learned that she and her partner, Masashi Alvarez, had relocated their school from Warner Robins to my hometown, I was overjoyed. I'm here tonight to tell you that this young woman and her school trains exquisite dancers of the highest caliber. We have acquired a huge asset for this community. They're just across the street, and Mayor, you probably can see their studios from your office. I cannot say enough about this young woman, and I know that as we go forward with the Smyrna vision, in which we all want to increase the arts and culture presence in our community, this person and her school should be a major contributor. It is my honor and my pleasure to introduce you to what I consider Smyrna's newest, best asset, Mrs. Jornay O'Quinn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Jornay O'Quinn, and I own International City School of Ballet, which Idella just told you is across the street on the second level. We're right above the wine cellar, and I'm sure if you're ever in your offices, you can probably see the children dancing. But we are very excited about our performance coming up, the highlights of the Nutcracker. And we're very grateful that the city of Smyrna has helped to put this on with us. Very grateful to Steve. He's been unbelievable with everything. So we would like to cordially invite you on behalf of myself and our Sugar Plum Fairy to our Nutcracker, which is Sunday, December the 13th at 4 p.m. So I hope you guys can make it.
I've never gotten an invitation like that before.
Well,
and it's going to be this Sunday, is that correct?
It's Sunday at Campbell High School
All right.
at 4 p.m.
I understand that there's limited tickets, so you better get them early.
Yes, we don't have very many tickets left.
Yep.
Steve wouldn't know the numbers, but we don't have very many.
Good deal.
So,
Well, we're certainly glad to have y'all in the community and look forward to working with y'all
thank you.
over the next several years. Thank y'all very much.
Yes, this is Madison Broxma. She is our Sugar Plum Fairy. She's been in our school since we moved here, almost 2 years now. So this is her last year in our school, and she will be auditioning for some different companies in the U.S. and abroad, as well as Juilliard and Boston Conservatory. So she's going to move on soon. So this is Madison.
Madison. The Nutcracker this Sunday evening.
Yes, at 4 p.m.
One show only, right?
One show only.
I tell you better get your tickets today. And how much are they?
It is 5 for children and 10 for adults.
Well, that's nothing.
Yes.
Well, I would just say it's because she has great support from
Yes.
a
Right.
parent support group.
Right.
And the mission of the school and the parent support group is to put on inexpensive or free performances. So please don't let the price of the tickets in any way convey the quality of the dance.
I'll tell you what I'll do right now. I'll buy 10 tickets right now. I pray I've got a $100 bill in my pocket. I'll buy 10 tickets and challenge the rest of the council to at least buy 2 each.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so
that would be
much. Thank you.
amazing. Thank you.
Please let me have a $100 bill in this pocket. Now, let's see.
Okay, all right.
Y'all take this is the best money. How'd y'all know I had exactly $100 in my pocket? Okay, here.
Okay.
Y'all can, you don't have to put them in the mail. Oh, wait, that's just one of the things. I got plenty of money. So I got 10 tickets, and the council, I'm sure they'll want to get some, so there's one. See, look, this is going to be a great evening. Anybody else out there? We'll be here all night.
We better take down.
Yeah. Anybody wants tickets, you can get them. Where can you get tickets at?
At Campbell. Oh, you can pick up the tickets at the community center.
I'll just get it. Just Steve, bring me my 10 tickets.
Yes. And sure he can deliver the tickets.
These are going to be
you.
great gifts for someone. So that's a good deal. Well,
Thank
y'all
you.
very much. We look forward to seeing the performance. And
Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Item 4 is departmental reports. I hope they're going to be short tonight. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several department heads here tonight to give you some updates on some activities been going on in these departments for the last few weeks. And you'll come to the podium. Thank you.
Give you some Public Works project reports. Our Concord Road Splosh project is complete. A final walk through the project is scheduled. Our Belmont Hills sanitary sewer outfall is 99% complete, and actually tomorrow we'll do a final walkthrough with the contractor. For Windy Hill Road, Atlanta Road Splosh intersection improvement project, the contractor is currently working on medians and lane widening on the east side of Atlanta Road on Windy Hill. Our Gann Road storm sewer project made me quite happy today. We were able to pour all the concrete curbing. We're removing the soils for the sub-base. Hopefully by the end of the week we will have the base in, gravel base in, and if not this week, next week. There's no reason that roadway can't be paved. So I stood out there all day today, and I'm going to stand out there all day the rest of this week just to make sure this happens. Our security camera splosh project, the contractor has completed. When I say completed, he has installed several of the cameras in several of the buildings. He's installed 6 of the buildings so far. Wednesday of this week, he'll be in the community center installing that equipment in that building. And he has about 10 more buildings to do after that. Our Village Parkway sidewalk splosh project, sidewalk and trail, goes from Spring Road to Windy Hill Road. Contractor has mobilized. He's installed his silt fence, and he is ready to start that project. Our Highview Drive Plumcrest storm sewer project is 70% complete. Should be completed maybe by the end of this week. Our Hickory Hill storm sewer and sanitary sewer replacement is 50% complete. Lois Street drainage project, it's the same contractor that's also doing the Village Parkway project. They were to start the 30th. They actually started today. Our Fox Creek drainage project, a contractor mobilized Friday, and should have a delivery of pipe this week and start installing pipe on that project this week. And major project to start probably after the first of the year will be our South Cobb Drive water main replacement. That's it.
Questions? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ann Kirk with Keep Smyrna Beautiful. If you fried a turkey over Thanksgiving or you plan to fry one over the Christmas holidays, please bring us those gallons and gallons of used cooking oil when you're finished with them. We will accept those at the recycling center or any of the fire stations. And if you have curbside recycling pickup, you can leave it at the curb for them to collect. We are also collecting old strings of holiday lights. So if your lights don't work and you don't know what to do with them, you can bring them to the recycling center and we will have them recycled for you. January 2nd, 9 to 4, we'll be collecting Christmas trees at the Home Depot on Cumberland Parkway from 9 until 4 p.m. Please bring us your trees minus the decorations and the lights, and please don't bring any wreaths or garlands because those things cannot be chipped. That is January the 2nd. It's the first Saturday after Christmas. Finally, on January the 18th, we will be having our 3rd annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. We will be mostly operating in the schools, but if you know of a service project that you think needs to be done or you would like to volunteer, please call my office and you can reach me by the City Hall number. Thank you very much and have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, Ann.
Well, good evening, everybody. I tell you, wow, what a great turnout tonight for the Mayor's Education Awards. That was really a neat thing to see. You know, we were joking as staff in the back that it was even beyond standing room only. There literally wasn't even no place to stand. So that was a cool thing to see. I just had a couple of quick updates. The fire department will host its next Citizen Fire Academy class beginning this March. So those that may be interested in the Citizen Fire Academy class, keep an eye out on the webpage for registration. We've just recently completed our reevaluation from the Insurance Services Office, and we anticipate those positive results sometime early spring. We're told to anticipate the results of that in March. And finally, just a reminder, this Friday the 11th is our 14th annual Shop with a Hero program. This year we're going to be taking over 60 children, 60 Smyrna elementary school age children shopping for Christmas. After the shopping event, we're going to bring them back to the community center for a lunch/Christmas party, and we're really excited about that. It'll be the first year that we actually bring him back and have a party at the community center. And I heard just today, now I know he's kind of a busy guy, but I was told today that there's going to be an appearance at that party by Santa. So I'm sure that'll be a really cool thing for the kids. You know, I tell you, I really couldn't be more proud of our community, especially in relation to this specific event. This year, just like every other year, we receive overwhelming financial support from Smyrna citizens and businesses, and it's only because of that support that this program can even exist, much less be as successful as it is. So on behalf of the program, thank you so much.
Thank you, Roy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to piggyback off of Chief Akery and talk about we're going to be helping out with Shop with a Hero on Friday. In addition to that, next Wednesday at the Target on East-West Connector, December the 16th, we're going to join up with Cobb PD, Cobb Sheriff's Office, Marietta, and some of the other cities for our annual Shop with a Cop, where we'll also bring at least 45 to 50 other additional children from the Smyrna area over there, along with other kids from around the county to help out with that too. And in addition to that as well, there's a Carol Pascal, if any of y'all have heard of her, runs a place called Cobb Street Ministries, and Chief Lee has been involved, his family, with their family for some time, and this is the third annual year that we go out and help out with their shelter, which aids with women who have been in abused homes along with their children. So we'll go out there sometime around the 18th or 19th and help out with them and let them meet our officers and that kind of thing. So that's some of the benevolent efforts. I want to talk about an active shooter scenario that we had back on last Wednesday. You know, we've been working over the last year really hard training our leaders in critical incident training. And sometime in late summer, we got with some of the recruiting stations, the military recruiting stations, because they had a threat over at Dobbins, and we took that very seriously and got to meet with their folks. And for about the last 3 months, we've worked with with the Marine Recon Station over on Roswell Street to actually produce an active shooter scenario, and they did that on Wednesday, amazingly in the light of the things that went on in California. So. But it was two-tier. The first part of the drill involved a Marine response. They needed to be, to have some training as well, where our officers role-played as armed threats. And the simulation went very well and provided them some great tools and some debriefing so they could fine-tune their program. The second part involved a patrol response where our SWAT team played role-players as threats, and we sent out our first responders to go in and neutralize the threat on this property. And they did a very good job, too. We went a step further and actually had the officers pull wounded to a triage collection point and actually got the fire department involved as well, so that went very well, and it got them involved. And then we went even a step further and brought our detectives to train them in the process of evidence collection and things of that nature when it comes to a large critical response like this. So I think it went well. Going forward, we're going to be getting with businesses, with religious organizations, and getting our leadership to train them and getting response plans involved with them throughout the next year. So, and last but not least, I wanted to recognize Chief Lee. He's been appointed to the Georgia Israeli Law Enforcement Exchange Program, which is a board that goes out and picks officers from around the nation. It used to be just Georgia, and they sent them to Israel. I did it in June, and it was just phenomenal. He's been on this board. He's been appointed to the board, so he'll work with Dr. Robbie Friedman of Georgia State University. And it's a great honor for him to be appointed to it, because he'll be on there. He'll be picking people to go to Israel, and then when Israeli leaders come here, he'll meet with them and do great things. So, good for Chief.
Any questions?
I attended the active shooter training that was conducted between the Marine Recon Unit, our police department, our fire department, and as a general statement, you don't want to be an active shooter going up against a whole bunch of recon Marines. It's just a terrible idea. It was very impressive, and frankly, it was quite realistic. When the police officers went in to assess, they had no idea where the active shooters were. They cleared room by room. They did it in a very professional, very thought out, methodical manner, and I was very impressed by our PD. And then later, when the officers were taking the wounded out to the casualty collection points, the fire department did an excellent job, and it was great to see us working with our neighbors. And that we don't forget that they're there. I know we pass by it all the time, but you don't really realize what's going on behind those fences. And that's a good neighbor, and I think it was a great drill. I think they got a lot out of it as well.
They really jumped on board very immediately, so it was very positive for them and us, and we appreciate the time.
And Chief, thank you for the goodwill that instilled. Hopefully that piece of property, which is federal property, can be annexed into the city, and we can be partners for a long time, just like some of our schools, which are in unincorporated Cobb. I think giving our officers a greater degree of familiarity in addition to the first responder status to protect our kids, that would be a great asset to the city as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you all do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your earlier reception of the International School. Just to dovetail off of that momentarily, in addition to tickets being available at the Community Center, they are also available at the Wolf Recreation Center on Church Street, and they can be purchased online. If you go to the city's website, smyrnacity.com, they'll give you more information about what particular link for that Sunday performance at Campbell High School. There's another Christmas function that Parks and Recreation is putting it on. It is called Christmas at Bronner Coat Drive. That is Friday, December 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. Bronner Hall is, of course, at Taylor Bronner Park, home of Food Truck Tuesday. That is at 3180 Atlanta Road. That is, Bronner Hall is the large white building set back on the property. Holiday treats, hay sleigh rides, children's activities, and, of course, visits with Santa. Admission. It is optional, but we hope you contribute one new or gently used coat. The point is giving at this time of the year. So that is, again, on December 18th. Thank you.
Steve.
Ma'am.
Now, for those that can't make it on the 18th, would it be okay if they dropped off a coat either earlier that day or the day before?
For at least a week.
At least a week?
Yep.
Okay, because I've already told one group that I thought you would be accepting donations early.
Yes, we will.
Good. Thank you.
Good evening from Human Resources. I have a very quick announcement. I have two people in the month of December that I would like to recognize for their service. We have Master Patrol Officer Gary King with the Police Department is celebrating his 10-year anniversary with the city. And last week we went out and made a presentation to Carrie McCoy for 30 years as our fire lieutenant in fire prevention. So it was a pleasure to go out and actually see him and present a 30-year certificate for him. It was just wonderful to see his expression, and I think we kind of surprised him, but it was well deserved. So that's what we have for the month of December. Thank you.
Thank you.
From community development, I'm going to change it up a little bit. First of all, you know we have a vacancy in our Marshall division. We are starting interviews later this week. We've had a lot of applications. They've been narrowed down to 7. We've already gotten 6 of those 7 scheduled to start Thursday and go through next week. So that's well underway. But the other thing I wanted to change up, instead of talking about what we've done in the past, I wanted to remind you what we have in the future, especially since we're heading into 2016. Just a little graphic. This is a little work chart that I use and put together. This is not intended really for anybody to see other than the numbers of blocks that are there. But just to remind you all what we have facing us in 2016, besides just the normal zoning related issues, we still have the finishing out of Belmont. We have the beginning of Jonquil. There's an Emerson Center annexation that is waiting out there, which would be off of Spring Road. We have the Google situation where we expect, not that the lines will be going in, but we do expect some movement on their huts. The Riverview Road development that you approved down by the river, I expect to see action in that in 2016, as well as the Concord Road Park development that we have talked about recently on that. I'll also give you a heads up there. Our future land use plan is due for updating. It is due to the Atlanta Regional Commission prior to October of 2017, so it will be in our next budget cycle. You will see additional requests for hiring outside help to help us meet that goal. There's also several amendments to the ordinances that we have that I do anticipate that we will need to make with regard to the Braves Stadium and their opening. As well as I anticipate that we will probably talk about updating, if not all of our sign ordinance, at least portions of our sign ordinance, because of a Supreme Court case that came down in June of this year. Scott and I have already talked about that, so we will queue that up for you in 2016. Those are just a little bit of things you have to look forward to in 2016, and I thought this would be a good way to introduce you to that tonight. And with that, I am welcome any questions, but that's what we got coming.
Thank you, Ken.
Good evening. Just a couple of quick notes. As of today, we are at 97% collection on our property taxes, so we did really good this year. At the CAL next week, I'm going to be bringing to you our final budget adjustment to finalize our financials, and then the next week bring it to y'all for a vote. We're doing our normal year-end processes, getting ready for W-2s, 1099s, and we're also going to have our CIP budget process. Information is due this week, and then after the first year, we'll get into the regular operating budget. So, any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That concludes. Does that conclude our department head reports?
That concludes the department head reports, Mayor.
Right. We'll move into item 5, which is land issue zonings and annexation. A is 2015-166 public hearing zoning request Z15-008 rezoning from R15 to RAD conditional for the development of 5 single-family homes, 1.27 acre land lots 488, 1091, 1107, and 1121 Bank Street, Pritchard Brothers, Inc. This is tabled from November the 16th, 2015. Mr. Jones, the background, please.
Mr. Mayor and Council, bear with me. I have to give you some history before I give you the background. This property was originally rezoned for 5 lots in 2006. About a year later, the zoning of the property was subsequently amended, where a sixth parcel was added in June of 2007. Section 1201 of the zoning ordinance requires that all conditionally zoned property, which that was, if it's not had affirmative action taken to perform the conditions of the zoning within 24 months, then that zoning is reverted back to its original. So in 2006, going forward, nothing had happened by 2008, so that property was reverted back to its original zoning. In May 2015, the Planning and Zoning Board heard a request to rezone the property, and after hearing the request, voted to deny that rezoning request by a vote of 4-2. That rezoning request was then heard by Mayor and Council at the June 2015 meeting, and at that time, several residents came and spoke in opposition to the rezoning request, particularly regarding stormwater management, site density, site access, and building architectural issues. Because of the citizen opposition and the concerns that they expressed, Mayor and Council voted to table the vote, tabled by a vote of 7-0, and that would allow the time for the applicants to meet with the neighborhood and for the staff to resolve some of these identified issues. Since the time of the May or the June 15th tabling, there have been 2 meetings with the neighborhood, meetings with city staff, city officials, neighborhood representatives for the sole purpose of addressing some of these issues. And this has since been forwarded from the June 15th meeting and is before you tonight for your consideration.
I know the applicant is here. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that's in opposition to or that would like to make any public comment for or against this rezoning request? Those that would like to be sworn in, I'd like to get everybody sworn in all at one time. So even if you just think you want to speak, you don't have to, and you don't want to speak, or you end up not want to speak. I want to swear people in one time. So please come forward. Anyone that intends to make any public comment or even mumble under your breath, I'd like to get you sworn in. Yeah. All right, everybody will have a seat. This is in Miss Cherry Anulowich's district. Miss Anulowich.
Yes, I'd like to invite Rusty Martin up to give some more of the details about and background about this project.
Good evening. Mr. Jones has highlighted the background pretty effectively and it's hit every issue that we've been through, so I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. This property is located on Bank Street. It's 3 lots currently right now. The applicant is proposing to subdivide this property into 5 lots and go from a zoning of R15 to RAD conditional. Those lots will be approximately 55 feet wide and about 100 and something feet deep. As you can see on the zoning map, the property to the north, to the west, and south that all are contiguous to this property are zoned RAD. The properties to the east are R15. The future development map has a future land use designation of moderate density residential. This requires a density below 4.5 units per acre. The applicant with his zoning is proposing a density of 3.94 units per acre. And as you can see, the properties to the north, west, and south are moderate density residential. The properties to the east are medium density residential. Here's the proposed site plan presented by the applicant. It's got a front setback of 30 feet. It's got exterior side setbacks of 10 feet, a rear setback of 30, proposing a 5-foot sidewalk and a 5-foot right-of-way dedication along Bank Street. And then the proposed stormwater detention facility will be located in the back of lots 1 and 2 They're proposing an underground structure. And then finally, a 10-foot access easement to access that structure for maintenance purposes. Part of the discussion related to the rezoning request at the last meeting in June centered around stormwater management. The applicant has submitted a stormwater management agreement, which they've entered into with Parkview Village, which is contiguous to the north. The green outlined area highlights the subject property. The red area highlights the open space and the detention facility for Parkview Village. This agreement will allow the developer to convey his water from his stormwater management facility to the Parkview Village facility and then on to the stream. In addition, they have agreed to make improvements to the Parkview Village facility, as well as bring the Parkview Village facility up to city standards. In addition, they have worked out the monetary agreements for maintenance moving forward. This is at the last meeting we had a discussion on how the applicant would provide turnarounds for the cars entering each of these homes. So they drew certain house plans on some of the lots and showed how they're going to provide the bump outs and the turnarounds to get the cars to be able to head straight out onto Bank Street without backing out. These are purely conceptual. They're just to show that it could be done, and this is how it would be done. These are the proposed home elevations for the site. Picture of the subject property. Not much has changed since April, since I've got out there to take pictures. These are the adjoining properties. Adjoining properties to the east, west, and south. Community Development recommends approval of the requested rezoning from R15 RAD conditional for the construction of 5 new single-family residences at a density of 3.94 units per acre with the following conditions. Number 1, the composition of the homes in the residential subdivision shall include a mixture of elements, including but not limited to brick, stone, shake, hardy plank, and stucco. The second, the stormwater management facility shall be placed and screened appropriately to be unobtrusive to homes inside and outside the development. The stormwater detention plan shall be designed to create at least a 10% reduction in a 2-year to 100-year storm event. Third stipulation, all utilities within the development shall be underground. And fourth, the developer shall be responsible for any traffic improvements deemed necessary by the city engineer. The fifth stipulation, development of any streets shall conform to city standards. Sixth, no debris may be buried on any lot or common area. The seventh, the developer will install decorative street lights within the development, subject to the approval of the city engineer. 8, the developer will comply with the city's current tree ordinance. 9, all landscape plans must be prepared, stamped, and signed by a Georgia registered landscape architect. 10, all yards and common areas are to be sodded and landscaped. And 10, this is a planning schedule for each lot within the development. They either have to plant 4 3-inch caliper trees or 3 4-inch caliper trees, and it provides a list of approved species. And on to the special conditions. Special condition number 11. The development shall maintain the following minimum setbacks: front setback of 30, an interior side of 0 with a minimum building separation of 10 feet, an exterior side of 10, and a rear setback of 30. The minimum driveway length should be 22 feet, and that's measured from building face to edge sidewalk, and each garage shall have a two-car garage. The next stipulation, the right-of-way along Bank Street shall be increased to 50 feet, and therefore a dedication of 5 feet along Bank Street is required. And the next stipulation, approval of the rezoning shall be subject of the subject property for residential attached detached zoning district shall be conditioned upon the development of the property in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan dated 5/7/2014. And the next stipulation, the applicant shall be bound to the elevations submitted and dated 12/2/2015. Any change needs the approval of the community development director. And finally, each home shall provide a driveway with a turnaround area to allow cars to pull headfirst onto Bank Street. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah. Rusty, with the stormwater from this development going into the stormwater pond of Parkview Village, is it likely that that pond is going to increase in size?
I'll let the city engineer answer that.
Good evening. The short answer is no, because a good portion of the subject properties already drains to Parkview Village, and that will be the constraint for their on-site detention, and it's really just a conveyance through the backyards to the existing detention facility in Parkview.
Okay, thank you.
Any other engineering questions?
Yes. When we met a week or so before the Thanksgiving holiday and talked about the Parkview detention plan, it was noted that there was, and I'm pulling up my notes from that meeting, but that the outlet facility was not up to par. And you said that you were certain, or you said it was likely left in place so that they could manage the runoff. This is just what I wrote in my notes, but that doesn't mean that's what it actually meant. Because these are
if I recall the conversation, the existing detention facility for Parkview Village had what's referred to as a retrofit, which is an erosion control measure to keep sediment from entering the stream. And that was never removed from the time it was originally constructed. So our inspector, Paul Osborne, walked the site, inspected the facility, and recommended a number of improvements, which included removing that. It should not have a hydraulic effect on the outfall because the concrete box is still in place, and that's what would control the outlet overall. But he has also recommended, if I recall, some additional what we call check dams, essentially.
Yes.
About 2 foot tall riprap, heavy riprap around both the outlet structure as well as any pipes leading in, so that any sediments will be caught and slowed down, make it easier to maintain in the future.
And it's my understanding that as part of this happening with the Parkview Village Phase 1 detention pond, that pond is going to be cleaned and brought up to the current standards, or to standards that were in place at the time that the detention facility was approved?
It will be brought up to current maintenance requirements.
Okay.
It will not be retrofitted to meet the current ordinance. At the time of the original development, it met that ordinance, and we've since updated it.
Right.
So if we were to update it now, if we were to meet current requirements, it would probably triple the size of the facility.
Okay. But regardless of whether or not the size of the facility is tripled, it will be able to handle the water that comes from the facility that's being built upflow, I don't think that's the technical term, but that's being built upflow where this development is. It can handle the capacity that's brought in by that.
Yes, it can, because that was originally designed for the water from these subject parcels to pass through.
Okay.
So by using that as the constraint, there will be more volume passing through, but the on-site detention that this subject parcel is required to have will be designed with that limitation.
Okay.
So, Mr. Randall, the question I have is, when Mr. Martin described that there is some sort of an agreement, a formal agreement with Parkview, and there have been dollars expended toward improving the facility, that's what you're speaking of, so that the management of the water off both of these sites, in essence, are going to be managed more efficiently? Is that the way I'm to interpret it?
The agreement with Parkview Village formalizes the water from the subject parcel flowing through their detention facility. It also provides a piped connection rather than overflow, rather than just flowing over land.
It will bring the existing facility back into current maintenance requirements. It's a fact of life. We have a lot of detention ponds in the facility, in the city, that have not been maintained, and this is one that's being brought up to current standards.
So this would better manage the water that's following
yes.
that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Questions, anybody?
Thank you.
Okay. For those, is the applicant here? If they'd like to come forward and.
Good evening. My name is Frank Pritchard. Most of the questions that had been addressed by you at the initial meeting have been addressed by our engineering and by the way that we are handling the water now. The primary concern was erosion and water control. And at your suggestion, I believe at one of the meetings, Mr. Welch, we met with the Parkview Village Homeowners Association and reached an agreement with them by which we would clean out the detention pond, the existing detention pond, which is very much overgrown, and bring it to the standards in existence at that time, when that was, and do other remedial work, including putting a ramp in for future maintenance. The water will be collected on our property, and it will simply be piped across to the retention pond in Parkview Village, and therefore flow through. It is not going to be adding to the water that is detained in the Parkview Village detention. All of that will be managed on our property, and our detention facility will be underground and out of sight. So any of the water that presently drains onto the homeowners of Parkview Village will now be handled on our site. A berm will be established between our water management facility and the buffer area, and that will prevent any water from that comes from our project going onto that property. So we're managing all of that water, which answers many of the questions that had been raised about erosion, because now it's all going to be piped below. There was also a question raised about row housing, the row housing effect, and I think that was addressed with the drawing that Rusty showed you just a few moments ago. I believe that is, we are adding a parallel sewer line. One of the concerns was the number of curb cuts that we would have on Bank Street for the sewer cuts. We have decided to add a parallel sewer line in the front yard of these homes, which will do a couple of things. It will allow us a little more flexibility on the height of the homes. If you recall, when we talked, this is a long time ago, but we talked about the problems that we had in maintaining the height of the home, having to have it high enough to drain into the sewer line. With the addition of this sewer line, we're gaining probably a couple of feet, which allows us greater flexibility in being allowed to set the homes back a little further or to vary them a little bit more. So the overall project will be improved, plus there will be only one curb cut.
Any other questions?
Mr. Pritchard, you say you will collect the water on your side, and I've been looking through the site plans here. Is it a single pipe leaving your property from a low point, or is there another pond being constructed on your property, or are we still going with the flow wells?
No, we are going with a detention facility. The engineer is here. Let me invite him up to assist in this. This is Mark Lee with Paul Lee Engineering.
Is there a drawing that I have that shows that pond, or can you just describe to me where approximately it will be?
I've had a cold, so I'm going to speak as best I can. Rusty demonstrated on his drawing where that blue square, where the proposed detention would be in the lower back left-hand corner.
In the low point of the property. Then.
Yes, at the low point
Well,
of
I
the
mean, that
property.
makes sense.
And it'll be underground piping with gravel, and then it'll be piped directly over to the pond that it exists now.
So you'll collect it on the back of, I don't know what lot that is, but it'd be what would be,
Yeah,
I
one
would
and
think, the
two.
easternmost or the westernmost lot, and then pipe it to the other storm pond, detention pond. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
And the retention will be underground.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We had a number of individuals that were sworn in that like to make public comment. If you just come forward, tell us who you are. And
I'd like to add one other thing. When I appeared before you and received permission or rezoning of the two lots across the street, I indicated that my son and my brother would be building on there. Unfortunately, that is not going to be able to happen, and I wanted to correct the records. I don't know if that influenced anybody's votes the last time, but it is important that you know that they're unable to do that.
Okay. All right. Anyone that's sworn in, would like to make any public comment, just come forward, tell us who you are, where you live, and any comments that you'd like to make.
My name is Judd Walford, and I live at 1127 Bank Street. And the conversation really comes around the fact of the 5 houses. I know we talked about the conversation of the runoff, but the runoff is really starting from all the 5 driveways, 5 roofs, all being into one place. And that was the conversation. We had many conversations about trying to change that to 4, and there was no change, and it all came down to, in our mind, because of the money that was going to come from the additional lot for Mr. Pritchard. And that was one of the conversations, what he just spoke of just a few minutes ago. He got approval to split the lot across the street, and now those lots are up for sale. And my real concern is, there will be a lot of codes and things they'll have to live up to for the 5 lots, but what will the finished product look like on the 5 houses? Because we have not lived up to what we said we're going to do across the street already.
Well, and I want to interject because I know in this zoning matter there is one of the special stipulations is that they have to be built to the elevations submitted on December 2nd, which is yesterday. Does that? And I can pull up that specific zoning item, but do y'all know offhand, Rusty, if that has the same stipulation?
Yeah, they submitted specific building elevations with that rezoning request.
Zoning conditional to those elevations as this one is. Okay.
9% of our zonings are tied to specific site plans and specific elevations.
Okay, that's because I agree. It's they're for sale, and that's really disappointing on a lot of levels. But my concern is at least mitigated. If since that special stipulation is in place, if they were going to have to change the plans on that, change what was going to be built there, they would have to go back to staff, and staff would immediately go back to me, and we could determine if we were going to bring it back to the council.
Sure, I understand. The biggest concern I have is many times Mr. Pritchard has said he'll only build the first 2 houses and then figure out what he would do with the final 3 lots in the future. And that goes back to exactly what we just talked about with the lot across the street. So I just have a concern about whether it would actually end up the way we discussed.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council members, for allowing me to speak. My name is Frank Millen. I live at 1196 Bank. First thing I'd like to mention is that a few months ago, my wife, who was from Taiwan, her aunt came and visited us, and we drove around town, and her comment to me was she was very impressed and overwhelmed by the size of the lots and all the greenery, green spaces, and houses for large families, and not crowded together. She was really impressed with that, so I thought I'd tell you about that. This development is more about profit than anything else, and we've been on a hook now with building up on Hamby Street for almost a year. Now this is going to be 2 more years of building, and then there's another development possibility across the street. What happens to these young couples who don't go to college, they get out of high school, they get married, there's not going to be any small houses left for them to buy and to move into. And I don't think that's right. Now, this is a residential neighborhood with mostly large lots from one end of Bank Street to the other, except for the Village Green neighborhood, which is the perfect transition from the commercial city area to the residential area. I am most familiar with this area because 3 years ago, I remodeled one of those small 800 square feet houses and made a 3,000-foot house. I still have a big lot, a lot of grass, a lot of greenery. I didn't remove any trees at all. And I have a lot of big yard, like I said, and I didn't displace any rabbits, any coyotes, any hawks, or any chipmunks. Now this lot, or 3, 4 lots, 5 lots, is going to be clear cut, and that's going to displace a lot of animals, I guess. To allow this construction with 0 lot lines between the houses. I saw on the drawing that Rusty put up, 0 lot lines. So if I walk outside of my house and I own that 0 lot line, am I going to trespass on my neighbor's lawn? I don't understand how that can be approved, a 0 lot line on a house. Fire codes, I talked to the fire chief a little earlier. I guess all these houses have to be have a fire dispersal, what do you call it? Fire suppression system built into the houses. Allowing just 4 homes would be a lot better than what we have now. We're going to go down the street with all these big lots, and then we're going to have this massive 5 houses together, and then we're going to go down to big lots again. If this is approved, as other houses become available down the street for sale, we're going to have the same thing over again. How many years in a row are we neighbors going to have to be put up with this construction? I don't like living in a construction. Once the developer is allowed, it will allow forever for an ugly blot on a tree-lined, pleasant neighborhood, and that'll be 50, 60, 70 years before it's grown out again. Sure, the city could be sued if this is disapproved, but anybody can sue the city for any reason whatsoever. And I'm sure that the builders, and one comment that Mr. Pritchard made at I think it was at the June or July meeting. He said he had a contract with the contractor for 5 lots, and he couldn't reduce it. Well, how can he contract for 5 lots when he doesn't have 5 lots? I don't understand that, and I hope you take that into consideration, that it's zoned for 3 lots right now. You want to make it 5 lots, you're overbuilding. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Thank you for hearing my comments this evening on the request for rezoning this property next to my house. I'm David Stewart. I live at 1079 Bank Street, just west of the proposed changes. I would like to address the most important remaining things that I believe are relevant to your decision making. To begin, I do want to note that I believe the applicant has addressed my very serious concerns about damage to my property with their re-engineering efforts for both water and sewer, which I do appreciate. However, while they have finally addressed these items just in the last week or two, there are still some unaddressed items of concern to my family's safety and the destruction of my community. So to start, with regard to zoning, we on Bank Street believe that RAD conditional zoning should not be used for splitting lots, but for improving blighted areas. If the council continues to approve lot splits, it will loose market forces on Bank Street that destroys the character of our neighborhood. You can talk about best and highest use if you wish, but the reality is that by passing RAD conditional zoning, the council is choosing to monetize something that is intangible in our neighborhood. I'm asking you today to help us retain the character of our neighborhood by not monetizing our R15 zoning, but instead maintaining our R15 zoning, which we believe is perfectly suitable, perfectly appropriate, and profitable for construction and reconstruction in our area. While some of our properties are RAD conditional, some of the owners there currently, we believe we are in compliance with all relevant R15 standards. We do not have 0 lot lines and are not high density in nature along in those properties. I would like to suggest that Smyrna revisit its thinking about both zoning and its vision so that this council can address the issues that have been raised repeatedly before this council about rezoning and other rezoning requests. Second, in terms of the process, for the Smyrna City Council, I would ask that you, if you personally believe that this process was in fact fair, As a question for you to ponder, I would respectfully request that you ask yourselves this question. How many do-overs do we give developers who do not put their best foot forward at the beginning of the rezoning process? How many man-hours of city employees should we allow to be wasted with a plan being tabled and modified every 2 weeks for 6 months? Why should we allow so many incremental, minimalist steps towards appeasing rezoning critics? It seems to me that this city council, if it wants to avoid all these controversies over rezoning, needs to send a message to developers that they need to put their best plan forward to this council at the beginning of the process. I would encourage this council to send a message to our esteemed developer community. No half-hearted measures. No avoiding necessary engineering and hydrology studies until being forced to do so. No avoiding communication with impacted communities. No holding back information until right before the meeting. It is difficult for me to understand why we allow our city government to be trampled instead of requiring that developments that require rezoning meet a high standard from the first opportunity of application. Third, construction to code and full implementation for required regulations. We have a track record for this developer and know what problems can come when the regulation and stipulations are not completely followed. The problems that have happened in the Parkview retention pond are in part because of inadequate completion of that pond. The developer did not complete his obligations for that pond. Additionally, even though Parkview contains many more homes, it has not maintained that retention pond either. We question the notion of a 5-house HOA, which is one potential option for this particular development, in maintaining something as important as an underground retention facility proposed in this rezoning request. Fourth, parking will directly impact access to my home when the proposed new neighbors inevitably park on the street, blocking the view and a safety hazard, and congesting traffic for Bank Street. Or alternatively, parking on sidewalks instead of the street or across the street in the cottages at Parkview. We do not want any parking or obstruction of the upstreet view due to this proposed redevelopment. We believe that the proposed density and directly and negatively impacts the safety of our neighborhood. I hope these points I've made tonight about the proposed rezoning have enlightened you as to our perspective and brought more information to the discussion and given you justification to reject the proposed request. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sean Glowacki. I live at 1108 Bank Street, which is directly across from this rezoning. I just want to reiterate a lot of the things that my neighbors have spoken about. David hit a lot of the key points. Living directly across, I live in the cottages, but I guess my first concern is why RAD conditional in this specific spot. If you look on both sides of these rezoning, they're single-family houses, they're large houses. Those houses aren't going to turn over anytime soon so that you can continually develop high density along there. So like my other neighbor said, you've got single families, high density single families. So I'm worried about the outlook of the street itself. My second point is really around parking, like David mentioned. We have the cottages at Parkview. We have 13 homes. We have one access point for all 13 homes. With this rezoning, you're going to put 2 more driveways out to Bank Street, so you'll have a total of 5 right across the street from my house. And mentioned parking. So people have a couple of friends over. They have a couple of friends over. There's more cars. I think those driveways won't be big enough to get more than 2 cars in there, so the other outflow and accommodating the extra visitors will be on the street itself or even in my neighborhood. And again, I have a 5-year-old son. We walk up and down the street all the time. We are concerned about the traffic on Bank lately. There's a lot of speeding cars that go through there. The sidewalks are very close to the street. And again, if people park on the sidewalk, we either have to walk around on the street or we have to walk on somebody's yard. So again, those are my concerns. And again, the rezoning for this is I just don't understand it in this specific spot. I re-understand RAD conditional and where it needs to be used for, and it was for revitalization of Smyrna. But on Bank Street, we don't need revitalization. I'm not saying we're against development. I think everybody and all our neighbors would like that lot developed. But 3 or 4 houses, I think, is part of the neighborhood. And we wouldn't even be here today if that was the plan. So thank you.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Sybil Sather, and I live at 1159 Bank Street. I wanted to start off by saying that I don't think anyone on Bank Street is opposed to development. Development in general would be great. We have some smaller homes. To renovate them and update them would be fantastic. I think we all have a concern of our future neighbors and our current neighbors that live on either side or nearby these properties. I wanted to point out one thing, safety. I have a high schooler who walks home very often in the afternoons, and she comes up Bank Street. We're talking about 7 new driveways in a very small space that she walks along. If someone is parked on the sidewalk, that means she's walking in the street. And those are a lot of cars that will be coming in and out of that space. And it would cause more safety issues for her walking home, amongst other students as well who do use Bank Street to get home out in the afternoons. I also wanted to point out there was the proposed 0 lot line. I know there are other developments in the area that have 0 lot lines. I'm trying to figure out in the holiday season, and people are putting up their Christmas lights. How does one do that with a 0 lot line? What if you don't get along with your neighbor? What if you need to paint that side of the house? You can't even lean a ladder. You really can't even span and circumvent your entire building yourself. You have to get permission from a neighbor to walk around one side of the house. I noticed in their proposal that on Table 2 of their infill developments, they listed 19 different homes that were comparable within the demographics of what what they're proposing. None of them have 0 lot lines. So I don't really think that they gave a good listing of what they were trying to do. I'm concerned about our future neighbors. I don't want to sit around the barbecue and discuss why you don't like the person to the left of you and you can't access your property because they don't like you either, and those type of things. The original request, I think, that was made in 2006, they also asked for a minimum from 0 to 15, and today they're asking from 0 to 10. What was the change of the extra 5 feet between houses themselves? Can we go back to 15? Can we make the minimum maybe 3 to 5 and span it from 3 to 15 or 5 to 15? We're not opposed to the development. We just want it to be conscious of those who are coming in and for those people to maintain the buildings after they've spent ideally $500,000 to $550,000 for these homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that was sworn in like to make any comment? Mr. Bishop.
I'd like to address the reason for the request for 0 lot lines. No home will be right on the lot. In Parkview Village, when we were building in Parkview Village, we had, I think, 5 or 7 variances that we had to come back before mayor and council to have a reduction from the 5-foot setback to 3-foot setbacks for such things as a chimney or something of that nature. So the purpose of having a 0 lot line is not to have the house itself be right on the lot, but to be able to give greater variation of the elevations between homes. No home will have any part of it touching 0 lot line. It is just, there will be 15 feet between homes, and we're willing to stipulate that no house will be touching the line.
You are willing to stipulate that?
Yes.
Are you willing to stipulate the 15 feet between the houses?
Right. No. If I said 15, that was a mistake.
Okay.
No, we have, I think, 10 feet between houses, the minimum. Most of them will be a little more than that, but...
So you're willing to... So to clarify, while the special stipulations indicate that there is the ability to have a 0 lot line, you are willing to have an additional stipulation. And I don't know, and Scott, this might be a question that you can answer. Would those be too contradictory to have as special stipulations? Because what we're saying now is we could add an additional special stipulation below the special stipulation that says that there could be a 0 lot line. Would say, but by the way, none of these houses will be built on, they'll all be within 5 feet.
No home will touch the
because you're
I
willing to
would
say that
say-
no home will touch the lot line. Well,
Any part of it.
but then you can come back and have a home that's 6 inches away from the lot line. They do. They do have to sprinkle them.
Come ahead. This is Ronnie Rains, who will be building the homes.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Rains with Rains Residential. As Frank said, the only reason for the zero lot lines would be for flexibility for whether, let's just say, for example, you had a 42-foot wide house and your fireplace stuck out 2 feet on one side. You would have to, that would be the only encroachment into that. I am certainly, most of the footprints that I have, let's just say we have a 55-foot wide lot. The majority of the footprints, I think the biggest one I have is 43. Most of them are 40 to 42. So if we have a 55-foot wide lot and I have a 42-foot footprint, that leaves, 13 feet between the houses. That would be, is that right? I mean, between the houses. But the zero lot line, I am willing to go with 5-foot setbacks and do away with the zero lot lines, as Frank.
That's all right with you?
I'm okay with that. And that it does away with that. And I know he's the applicant, but I'm okay with that. The only reason we were asking for that is, let's say if you had a 40-foot wide house that's the main body of the house and you want to do architecturally on an elevation where you could put the porch just out to the front to give the illusion that it's actually a bigger footprint. Does that make any sense of what we're trying to accomplish?
No, that definitely makes sense. But I also, because there has been a little bit of uncertainty and because the builders have changed on previous zonings that we've approved pretty recently, I know that my comfort level would be a lot higher if the setback was in a stipulation. If you're willing to go from 0 to 5 foot, I'm perfectly fine with adding that stipulation.
What it appears, Mr. Rains, is you're trying to avoid repeated variance requests, perhaps, by putting it at the outer boundary rather than what is maybe being interpreted.
Exactly. As from a building standpoint, I would certainly be hopefully 5 feet 6 inches off because of the firewall requirements. If you have to get, if you're over that 5 feet, then you have to meet the fire marshal. You have to have a 1 hour firewall all the way on the side of the house. So we wouldn't want to do that. The only thing is that may not hit a firewall requirement would be, say, to stick a part of a porch out that was 3 or 4 feet. And also part of it on one of the illustrations that Rusty had on the Roger Caldwell Klein. One illustration with a turnout, the one I'm looking at to the furthest right, just gave the part to have a turnout to the side. And that would be using a zero lot line, but we can eliminate that because as we went down, I could have the turnouts going to the furthest to the left and have the turnout and parking pad in front of the main body of the house. And I've seen a couple do that.
I mean, I think it's one thing to have a turnout going to the zero lot line. That's different than having the actual footprint of the house going to the zero lot line. I think those are two very different animals.
The only reason that he's illustrating that is so that the turnout did not encroach into the other property.
Right, yeah,
If
I
you
don't think
look
any
at that-
turnouts need to go into anybody else's property.
If you look at the one on the right, you'll see that he's illustrating how the turnaround would be on the right side, and that's what governed the home being positioned in that manner.
If on my side, if that's okay with Frank, if that is a sticking point with zero lot lines, I'm willing to stay to the 5 foot sidelines. And I'm
With 10 feet between homes.
with 10 feet between homes. And that'll just take that issue off the table.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say, as I understand it, and Ken and Rusty
You may want to correct me if I'm wrong, but the zero setback, the zero lot line setback was something that we actually added for flexibility, and that was it. We knew the houses were going to be 10 feet apart. And that was something that we added because we had a history with Frank. I don't know, how many houses have you built or developed in Smyrna?
60, 70?
60 or 70 houses. And so it was an idea that gave flexibility. Is that right? Can I see Ken shaking his head? Yeah. So I don't think the intent ever was to have houses that are right next to each other because the market wouldn't support that.
No, the intent was to avoid coming before mayor and council to go from 5 feet to 3 feet.
Right.
Because we had an abutment or a chimney.
Or a chimney that sticks out or whatever.
Right.
So if we can kind of solve this to give everybody comfort and say that we'll change the stipulation to what you said to 5 feet, then
the only exception might be if we have the chimney sticking out 2 feet. You know, the main body of the house would be 5 foot off, but the chimney might stick out 2 feet more.
But yeah, and I'm wondering if this gets to the essence of what the concern is if we don't have this as a stipulation. If this is not a stipulation, if, say, Ronnie, you built the first 2 houses, but then you decide to sell the other 3 lots to someone else, the houses still have to be built to look like the elevations. But that builder could then say, this is super, I have these 0 lot lines, and they could build accordingly. I think if this is added as a stipulation, it gives a great deal more of certainty where no matter who's building the house, not only do they have to maintain the elevations, they also have to maintain the 5 foot minimum setback.
I will go with that. If that's such a...
I'm trying to cut down to the marrow of what we're talking about here.
I'll go with the 5 foot sidelines, 10 feet between houses. I would like to address something as far as the elevations go to get clarity on that. Can you pull those back up? Do you have that other one from Caldwell Klein, Roger Caldwell? I left a charrette. These are renderings from Frank Betts, and I used Roger Caldwell with Caldwell Klein Architects. And I wanted clarification. These houses, I left you one. Yes, can you put this on the screen somehow, or is there a way to do that?
This should be incorporated into our...
Yes. No, it wasn't. That's the reason I'm asking to bring it up. Thank you. As far as the elevations, this was another elevation for a new design that we haven't done yet. We just did design charrettes, and this particular house had a master on the main. But I do want to get clarification. It's like, okay, you know, as far as elevations, that they will be as good as this or better, and I don't know how you describe better, but I would like to at least incorporate this elevation into the design of the house that'll be presented here. And I guess I have a question, you know, when you submit plans for community development, when you say this will be the exact elevation, things evolve in the construction industry. So I guess I would have a question for community development and council and mayor. If you have, say, a house that's better, are you hogtied to that particular elevation, or how does that approval come up? Say if I came in with a rendering like this, am I stuck with, no, you can't have that one because we said you had to have these 4 here?
And Rusty, interject if I say something that's inaccurate, but it's my understanding and what has happened in the past, this has happened with other developments. If something changes, that goes to staff. Staff reviews it and makes a determination. Is this just a matter of changing, 25 square feet from Shake to Hardy, or is this something that's much more profound than that? And that's when they determine if it, there's discretion on that end, but that discretion can lead to having to bring it back to mayor to council.
To answer Ronnie's question first, this stipulation this elevation that he's showing here was included in the package. I don't want 100 slides of each elevation that he's showing, so I just picked the ones that are representative of what he's trying to do. To Councilwoman Anolowitz's question, the process is when they submit for a building permit, they will submit their elevations to staff. Staff will then go back to the file, look at the file, we'll pull these pictures out, we'll look and say, these are all the architectural elements that they use within these building plans, and he's got to have those incorporated into the plans that he's submitted for permitting. In addition, he's got to meet the first zoning stipulation that says you got to have a composition of materials so and so that limit certain type of material on the street face. Usually I'll review those. If I don't feel that they meet the intent or they're off, the next step is to take them to the community development director. And the community development director will review them. And at that point, he'll say, yes, it's either in substantial compliance to what was submitted, or no, we don't feel it's in compliance. And then we'll go back to the applicant and tell them, you need to go back to mayor and council to get this elevation approved or modify the elevation to bring it into compliance with what you submitted for the zoning.
How often does that happen, Rusty?
It happens quite a bit because we're in front of you guys for, building elevation changes quite a bit. I mean, but for the most part, for single family homes, it doesn't happen that much. I mean, for the most part, they build what they said they're going to build.
Rusty, to the point the builder makes, the submission earlier was a different builder's interpretation of what they were to build. Do you have a different architect that you prefer and maybe has a better design element that you think are marketplace more maybe appealing, et cetera? Is that the general consensus that I'm hearing?
Oh, no. The color renderings that you see here are very representative of what we would do. I just wanted to add to it. Yeah. As I say, things evolve. If you came to me and said, hey, Mr. Rain, I really want this, but I want this, and this, well, then I would set up a meeting with one of these designers. Right. And Caldwell Klein has been doing our work for, 15, 20 years, and we would sit down and come up with a design, and it could certainly be a different elevation. But it certainly would be complementary to what we have, on it. And I think I've got two of the best designers in the city of Atlanta.
Right. So, Rusty, to the point he's making, there are alterations that meet the basic tenets that are in these submissions of renderings, and if they substantially was the word I think you used, meet that design scheme and the elements that it at submission, then you judge whether it's compliance.
Yes.
Compliant. Okay.
And so I can just throw this one thing, Rusty, also, if in your judgment it doesn't substantially meet the intent of what we've approved, then you bring it back to council. So it's the city still has control over the issue, but trying to give some flexibility for quality, like you're saying. So, and the other rendering that you had is included in the renderings that this has had to be substantially compliant with. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was going to say as the director is that everything ultimately, if there's a question at staff level, comes back to me. I've been here, it'll be 9 years in February.
I think we have, between council and the department, we have an understanding of what your expectations are. And I think you also understand where I am in making those interpretations. So I think we've done a very good job of hitting where that needs to be, and that, yes, a lot of times I have determined I'm not comfortable handling this administratively. I think the changes are too great, and it's brought back to you on that. I think that system works. I think allowing the director to have that flexibility, which is indeed put in one of the conditions that you all have tonight, it's already in there, helps the whole process through that. So, and this is not a new condition, as I'm saying. I mean, this isn't the first time we've ever done this. We do this almost with every request that we have.
Well, and I'll add, since we'll all do some real talk tonight, this is something that does happen, and there are times when Ken will say to you, "This is coming up," and it gives teeth in a way. Ken can then go back to a builder, not y'all, but it happened that he's had to go back to builders and say, this is what is going to happen. This change is too much. This is a change that you will need to go back for council. And implicit in that, and I think any builder worth the salt understands, is that means a delay in time. That means spending more money. It's a lot simpler to just build what you said you were going to build.
Agreed.
Joe, would you like to come up?
Joe.
For clarification, that's 5 feet off of the building line, 10 feet between houses.
Correct.
Okay. I'll agree with that. My name is Joe Bland. I live at 1130 Bank Street. And I appreciate you agreeing to the 5 feet between setback. So that means 10 feet between houses. Pritchett has conceded to a lot of things that we wanted done in the very beginning. The only one that he didn't concede to, and I don't think I could hold a gun to his head to get him to do that, is go from 5 to 3 or to 4. Could have, Frank? I got a gun in my pocket.
Well, good. I feel bad.
We have metal detectors in front. I have feelings on this issue.
Okay. But really, and I think y'all have seen from the very beginning of this situation and this procedure, whatever you want to call it, it's been drawn out, and it's drawn out. The city workers, the city employees, the council, the residents, we've been up and down and up and down. We don't know whether we're going to do it this week or that week or what. And I've had people in Bennett Woods say, "When are y'all going to do something over there?" I don't know. We're just waiting. So hopefully the city, and I think I heard right whenever Ken said that the zoning categories were going to be looked at next year, and the land use or whatever. Yeah, I think that needs to be done, because this procedure that went on Bank Street also went in Bennett Woods. It's also gone on all over the Cobb County, and it's gone over the whole United States of America. And something needs to be done about it to save your time, our time, and get this problem straightened out. So I know a lot of people. Scott tries to teach me English, and he's not succeeding very well.
Not very well. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not a good teacher.
But RAD conditional was conceived in my den. It wasn't a one-person thing. It flowed out all over the county and all over the city, and the signs were generated on Bank Street. I know y'all had some apprehension about that, and I can understand why, because I think it was a reflection on the city, and hopefully that's going to be rectified.
Well, the question is, with all these changes and these agreements and giving this and giving that. Are y'all okay with the way it's being presented tonight?
I don't want 5 houses.
5 houses?
No, as far as the water, the detention, the lateral sewer line, the setbacks, the getting rid of the 0 lot lines, things like that, I would say that they have met.
But to cut to the chase, if it was issued by the 5 houses, and you've added all these stipulations, and you've changed this, and you've done this, and that, it's all about the 5 houses, and y'all don't agree with 5 houses, then why do you even add the stipulations?
Well, he's going to build 5 houses, Mr. Mayor, and I that's one of the things. And
but if the 5 houses, if it's the issue about the density, and you really want 3 houses.
You know that you've got to have stipulations.
Well, yeah, I know
you
that.
have got to have rules and regulations, because if you don't, A's going to happen, and then here comes along B, and then here comes somebody else, and they're going to do C. And it just don't work like that. You got to have rules and regulations, just like we got speed limits on Bank Street that are 35 miles an hour, but we do need a speed bump on it or something. But anyway, that's another subject.
And Mr. Bland, as you know, we can only deal with the application that's sitting on our desk.
That's
right now,
true.
the application is for 5. That's what we have to vote on.
That's true.
Think we get any great pleasure in dragging this out?
No.
Forget it.
No.
We should have resolved this thing a long time ago.
That's exactly right.
Either have resolved
I'll agree
it,
with that.
and I'll add, if it couldn't be resolved, it didn't need to be tabled from meeting to meeting to meeting. It needed to either be withdrawn until everything could be worked out and represented, or tabled indefinitely. Because it was a, and I was going to say it later, but I'll say it now. It was a drain on staff resources. It was a drain on council. I mean, and most of all, it is a drain on the residents. It's not fair for y'all to have to lurch forward and stop, lurch forward and stop, lurch forward and stop. Regardless of the outcome, these things have to be done. And by these things, I mean rezonings. And I'm not talking just to the Pritchard brothers. I'm talking to any developer who comes forward with the city. These have to be done in a way that is frankly neighborly. And it's not neighborly to constantly be tabling and constantly changing things. And you know, it was mentioned that, you know, how many do-overs did they get? They really only had 1, and which is what we're seeing tonight. I mean, they weren't coming back every time this was tabled. It wasn't because they were bringing something new forward. It was just a holding pattern. And as a courtesy to the residents and the staff and the council of the city of Smyrna, I think that any developer coming forward needs to understand that you cannot just table and table and table and table and table. There has to be either a withdrawal, as we're going to see later up on the agenda tonight, or just table it indefinitely. But it's frankly maddening to have had to deal with this over and over and over again every 2 weeks for the past 6 months.
And Mr. Bland, you made reference to the Bennett Woods one as well. For those of us who represented Bennett Woods and had a goal of trying to have as much input and as much inclusion and negotiation as you all have had with the applicant, that's what was attempted there. Had I to do it over again looking back, we would have, instead of having the 3 public meetings that I had, which tend to bring out more consternation rather than agreement, perhaps we limit those to the 2 meetings.
Yeah. Well, there's another
Let's finish this public here.
Is the price point. Huh? Is the
That's-
price point. You know, there's been a price point anywhere from $500,000 and $550,000 for these houses. I hadn't seen any house sell for $500,000, $550,000 closed in our neighborhood in a long time. So what's going to happen whenever the 2 houses are built and they can't sell them for $550, what happens? They're going to drop the price. They want to get rid of them. They want to make their money and move on. You know, they're not going to be our neighbors. So, I don't know what.
Right.
Sir?
Is that you through, Joe?
I think so. Thank you very much.
Just asking, just make sure. All right.
My apology for this drawn-out process. After meeting with Terry after the first meeting, we attempted to meet with and engage Parkview Village, and that agreement was just reached, I think, 2 weeks ago. So that was the reason for the delay. In the whole, I think the whole project is vastly improved from when we started in June. And that, I think, is the goal of staff, of mayor and council, and I think we have reached that.
Yeah, I don't think it's in anybody's advantage to you or us or anybody, but I'm going to let Janet Bland speak.
Hi, I'm Janet Bland, and I just had to come up. Ron, we have not been engaged by Mr. Pritchett, and we have not had the input. The majority of the input that he got was what we gave in June. He's been working to go back against that. But until Terry set up a meeting, he had not reached out to the neighbors to engage us to have a meeting. It took the city council person to facilitate that for anything to happen, and I don't think that's being neighborly.
And but I thank you for that information, because that's not what I had understood from hearing you. So thank you for bringing that information.
The thing that concerns me about the elevations and not having that nailed down, and I fully understand your role and your role, but we live next to the cottages of Parkview, and we sat here and we looked at the elevations that Frank said he was going to build. Then the bottom fell out. They ended up having to sell them. And right next to me, I've got one really nice brick house and one 3-side hardy plank house that's 10 feet from my property line. And that's what we are very concerned about with him building 2, saying we'll see how it goes, and then leaving those other 3 there. And you've got an open elevation that's a pencil drawing. You don't know if it's going to be brick. You don't know if it's going to be hardy plank. You don't know if it's going to look like Hamby. And we depended on them for the cottages at Parkview. And we still ended up with hardy plank houses. So that's why we're so concerned, and that's why we get so adamant about these things that we come up here and talk about. Appreciate the time. Appreciate you listening. Thank you, Terry.
I have a couple of questions. I guess probably Rusty, when you were talking about the retention pond, is there anything in here that requires maintenance? I mean, I understand that the Parkview Village detention area was in need of maintenance, and going forward, in 10 years, is there, when they need maintenance again, is there anything in?
They'll be required to establish an HOA, and the HOA will be required to maintain that. Through their agreement with Parkview Village, there's 2 options. They establish their own separate HOA for the 5 lots, and then pay an agreed upon amount to be able to maintain the pipe from their pond to the Parkview Village HOA. Or the second option is to actually become part of Parkview Village, which would have to be approved by the Parkview Village HOA, and they would be incorporated as part of that community, and they would be responsible for both detention facilities.
But regardless, it's my understanding from reading the agreement with Parkview Village that regardless of whether or not they become full members of the Parkview Village Homeowners Association, they have to pay a fee every year for that maintenance. And the Parkview Village HOA board, I imagine, is now very keenly aware with what exactly the requirements are for maintaining a detention pond.
And on top of that, the city is going to require annual maintenance, which they'll have to provide an inspection maintenance agreement and record that with Cobb County prior to platting the property.
Rusty, to Ms. Lane's concern about the exterior surfaces, can you address that?
The exterior surfaces?
Like the hardy plank that she referred to that anticipated it originally being brick, I understand. Is that correct?
I would have to go back and look at those elevations that were submitted. Just like with these elevations, they have brick, they have shake, they have board and batten, and hardy plank. And, the staff's ability, we have to look at these elevations and make sure that they're substantially compliant with what was submitted. In addition, if the first zoning condition says you're allowed hardy plank siding except for on external streets, well, Parkview Village or cottages at Parkview Village, that cul-de-sac that goes in the back is an interior street, so they're allowed hardy plank they're just not allowed to have 100% hardy plank on either side. They got to have a brick water table, or they use shake, or they use board and batten to break that up.
Well, I would like very much to see after the first of the year, when the new council is sworn in, that we have a meeting and discuss all the different parts of this RAD, mainly because this was adopted by a council back in
1977.
Okay. Now,
I was one.
This is something that's going to come up, and I would like to feel comfortable in knowing that this is something that we all agreed to, you know.
Well, and to add on that, something that I mentioned we had a very brief pre-meeting prior to the Education Awards, and something that I've been kicking this around simply today, and Ken was very gracious when I sprung this on him, but I agree, and we've already mentioned this with the Planning and Zoning Board. We need to revisit several aspects of our zoning code. Now, to be very clear, that does not affect what we're voting on tonight, and it doesn't affect anything that's in the hopper. It's my understanding that there are 2 RAD zonings that are in the hopper right now, that are in the pipeline, that will be coming up from P&Z up towards the council eventually. But we need to have this discussion. We need to talk about, how does this fit in? I mean, how are we going to approach these conditions? Now, to clarify also, RAD conditional, the intent, and again, I was one. This was 1977. We don't know what was said about the intent, but as it is written, it just says the intent of this, it's section 704, the intent of this section in establishing the RAD district is to promote the development of single-family owner-occupied attached and or detached dwelling units at a low to medium density. Within any RAD residential district, the following uses shall be permitted. 1, all uses permitted in the R12 residential district. 2, single-family attached dwellings which shall be owner-occupied. 3, single-family attached subdivision in accordance with the provisions of Section 1013. So this was never intended to be a redevelopment tool, and it has never been used exclusively as a redevelopment tool in the way that we have other redevelopment things we can use for redevelopment in our toolbox. This was never intended to clear blighted areas. This had never had anything to do with it, and in fact, it's been used throughout the city. Some areas they needed to be redeveloped. That's great, but some areas it's just how you fit a square peg into a round hole, and it didn't mean the square peg didn't need to be there. It didn't mean it couldn't be a great part of the community. And I think we have developments throughout this community and throughout the city of Smyrna that are a testament to the fact that RAD zoning absolutely has a time and place, and that's why each one has to be considered individually. So that I wanted to address the issue of blight, because this wasn't ever intended to be a redevelopment tool for areas. This RAD isn't something that you have to have a but-for test. It's not a TAD. And that needs to be clarified. But I agree completely that we need to review multiple aspects of our zoning code. One of the things that I threw out there, and again, I threw this out there as an idea, not anything that has been discussed by the council or that we have voted on, but Sandy Springs, for example, just had they voted this summer for a 180-day moratorium on certain types of zonings. This dealt more with apartments, because that's the issue that they're really dealing with in Sandy Springs. And they did a 180-day moratorium so they could review how they were going to approach these developments going forward. I'm comfortable, even as we go into the new year, we have the new council proposing something like that while we review, maybe 120 days, just to hit the pause button. Again, it wouldn't affect anything in the pipeline. It would not affect what we're voting on tonight. It would not affect anything that's been previously voted on. But we can hit the pause button so we can determine, okay, how do we want to do this as a community going forward? How does this tie in with the future land use plan? Because I think one of the biggest mistakes we could make would be to just throw out the future land use plan. I think that would be, in my opinion, a bad idea. But we do need to figure out what changes, if any, do we want to make to this? Do we want to have any policies going forward on this? Do we want to hit the pause button? And those are things that we will be discussing coming in January.
Just so everybody know, 8 weeks ago, we met with the Planning and Zoning Board and the council and staff to begin this process of reviewing our current categories for rezoning, RAD and all that. We've looked at that. We had a great input from everyone, and our second meeting will be after the beginning of the new year. Anyone else that would like to speak? I know this young lady moved up front for no reason other than to...
My name's Mary, and I just live a couple...
Just tell us who you are.
My name's Mary. I live on Bank Street, a couple houses up from the development, and I know the developer has attempted to reconcile some of the logistic issues and the water runoff and structural, but But density still is a big issue, and there's been no compromise on that. And we're surrounded by R15 developments, and I know it's been said over and over again that people aren't happy with that. And I just think it would be nice to accommodate some of the existing residents, landowners, and homeowners out of respect for them. There's high-density development going on all over the city, and we don't know where it's going to stop. And we're concerned about that. I would suggest it being, I know everybody's sick of it being delayed, but I think it should be put under the new zoning guidelines, and I think it should be delayed.
Well, we could never reconsider it under any new zoning guidelines. That would be against that would be illegal. We can't change the rules as it's being played. So that would be going forward, but we can't.
Why can't they compromise? Why not 4 houses instead of 5? It would.
Well, the bottom line is they're asking for 5, and that's what we have to address. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? And this has been going on for a long time. If you were sworn in and like to make a comment, I'll be glad to hear it. If not, I'll just say this. Ms. Pritchett was not feeling good, and she's left for the meeting. She won't be here. Ms. Norbert, anything else?
I'll turn my microphone on. I mean, I've been just taking notes and doing the things I wanted to say. You know, we've clarified what RAD zoning is. We've clarified that, not clarified, but touched on the points that, this has been tabled multiple times and to a rather annoying degree, which obviously is subjective, but there's lots about the conversation that's been subjective. Developers in general, including but not limited to this developer, really do need to make an effort when they come to the city to be just respectful of everyone's time and, frankly, of their own pocketbooks, to have everything in a row, to have reached out to the neighbors, there aren't many developers who come to Smyrna completely blind and not knowing how developments work in Smyrna. And I think it would behoove anybody who wants to build in Smyrna to understand, how you have to understand the culture of where it is you're operating. And I've had people say repeatedly, well, this is so different from Atlanta. Well, yes, because we are not Atlanta. We are Smyrna. And I think as part of that culture, it needs to be understood that we don't need to table and table and table and table. It obfuscates the issue at hand. It obfuscates things and makes things very difficult for the neighborhood and for the community. And I think that has been a real problem. Now, a lot of valid concerns were raised, and that's why back in June we tabled this item, because there were, specifically with regards to the erosion and the runoff. And I think that the concerns have been addressed, and they have been addressed through many hours of meetings, that did ultimately take place between the applicant and between the residents, that took place between the applicant and the city staff, and hours of meetings and conversations, probably more than anyone else, that happened among the neighbors and the residents who are here tonight and who also aren't here tonight. I'm comfortable bringing this forward. I think that it's important that we have that stipulation for the 5-foot setbacks. I think it's important that it be made. I think it is made very clear to the Parkview Village HOA that obviously this is an ancillary issue, but that the detention pond has to be maintained. I think it's good that there will be, funding for that through both Parkview Village and through these new homes. Whether or not they join in with the Parkview Village HOA, they will be contributing to the pot that's going to be required for the annual maintenance of this. So I am comfortable bringing this forward. I don't know if there's any other conversation before I do that. So at this point, I do want to move to approve item 5A. It's 2015-116. This is the public hearing for zoning request C15-008, rezoning from R15 to R80 conditional for the development of 5 single-family homes. It's a 1.27-acre tract, land lot 488, 1091, 1107, and 1121 Bank Street. The applicant is Pritchard Brothers Incorporated. This has been tabled from November 16th, 2015, and it's been tabled from a lot of meetings prior to that. And this is with the additional stipulation that the minimum setback is 5 feet from the lot line, 10 feet in between the houses.
Second.
Motion and second to approve this rezoning request. Any discussion?
One correction, Your Honor, I think you said 2015-116 is 2015-166.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. That's approved 4-2. Pardon me? If I'm reading my screen right, I just announced it. I'm just going by what my screen says. It's approved 4-2. Item B, 2015-261, public hearing zoning request Z15-016, rezoning R15, already conditioned for the development of the 5 new single-family residences at a density of 3.81 units per acre, 2.3 acres land lot, 593, 1505, 1515, 1525, 1529, 1533, 1537 Spring Street. This applicant requested this be withdrawn. Any action we need to take on this, Scott?
Ken and Rusty, what did they send in to withdraw this? Have they filed something?
Just a letter requesting it be withdrawn.
Yeah. Okay. I just vote that it's withdrawn.
Withdrawn without prejudice.
Withdrawn by the applicant.
So we need to vote on it.
You don't have to, but I would, just for the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the applicant's, I guess, withdrawal.
Yes, I do have one question prior to making that motion, and that is if they decide to bring this back before the council, just to clarify, because I received this question from some residents, do they need to go back through the planning and zoning process, or would they just come right back to council?
No, it would be a new application, and
Okay.
it would have to go through the whole process again.
Thank you for that clarification. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure and get that on the record. And at this time, I would like to move to withdraw item 5B. It's 2015-261. This is the public hearing for zoning request Z15-016, rezoning from R15 to RAD conditional for the development of 5 new single-family residences at a density of 3.81 units per acre, 2.36 acres. It's land lot 593, 1505, 1515, 1525, 1529, 1533, and 1537 Spring Street. The applicant is Pradera Group, LLC. The applicant has requested to withdraw this item.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor of the motion? One more vote. Somebody. It's approved 6-0. Item C, 2015-396. It's approval of ordinance 2015-21 annexation request. 100% owners requesting annexation of all tracts and land lying between land lot 168 and 178, 18th District, 2nd Section, Cobb County, Georgia. A total of 17.44 acre tract, parcel number 180-1780-1520 Brookside Village Parkway, Mapleton, Georgia 30126, effective January the 1st, 2016. Mr. Jones, the background, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this, for clarification, this parcel is near the intersection of Veterans Memorial, just west of its intersection with Oakdale Road. We have received non-objection letters from Cobb County, and we received it on November 9th, 2015. The zoning classification in Cobb County is an RM12, which is a residential multifamily district, and this property will be annexed into the city of Smyrna as currently zoned. The approved use of the property is for residential townhomes, will be 156 units.
Mr. Ron Fennell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a owner property 100% annexation request. Mr. Rhodes has asked that the application be simply considered as an annexation. Any development of this property will follow the already agreed to stipulations within the county. And I hereby move approval of 2015-396, the approval of ordinance 2015-21 annexation request. 100% of the owners requesting annexation of all tracts of land lying between land lot 168, 178, 18th District, 2nd Section, Cobb County, Georgia. A total of 17.44 acre tract. Parcel number 180-170-1520, Brookside Village Parkway, currently in Mableton, Georgia, 30126. The effective date would be January 1, 2016, and it would be annexed into Ward 7, Smyrna.
We have a motion second.
Second.
Have motion second. Any discussion? Hope these guys haven't changed their mind. They've been waiting out there all night long. Motion second to annex this property. All those in favor of the motion, please vote. All right. Let's see, 6 or 5. Okay. All right, it's approved 6-0, and we apologize for you having to wait. I'm sorry. 6 is previous license. We have none. 7 is formal business. A, 2015-397 is submission of Livable Centers Initiative supplemental application for a study for the Spring Road corridor. Mr. Jones, the background, please.
Mr. Mayor, the original Livable Centers Initiative study for Smyrna was completed and adopted by Mayor and Council back in 2003. And as required by ARC, there are 5-year updates to that original study, and those were completed in 2008 and again in 2013. We have a deadline for today. Your adoption today would meet that deadline for a grant. It's an 80-20 grant. If we're successful and receive 100% of the grant funding, this would be a $150,000 grant. Our portion of it would be $30,000. The decision for those funds would probably be made sometime first quarter of 2016, and the purpose of the LCI update would be a 2.4-mile corridor study along Spring Road from US 41 back to Atlanta Road. We have members from Community Development here if there are specific questions from Mayor and Council.
All right, I'll get a motion from someone to approve this.
Approve item 7A. This is 2015-397, submission of Livable Centers Initiative supplemental application for a study of the Spring Road corridor. I think this is something that will be very welcomed by anyone who travels the Spring Road corridor at any point during the day.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. Approved 6-0. Item 7B under formal business 2015-403. Approval of extended work hours for the construction of the Homeland Self-Storage Facility at 5218 Oakdale Road, 1.48 acres, land lot 688, 5218 Oakdale Road, WLM Contracting. Mr. Jones, the background, please.
Yes, sir. This is a little bit of a different issue that we've got. There is a very deep lot associated with this parcel, and the contractor has come before us and asked for assistance with pouring the concrete. There's a substantial amount that needs to be poured, and the proposal is this: over a 3-month period, beginning shortly, that there would be 8 separate concrete pours. And to do that is going to cause disruption of traffic along Oakdale Road. And so we need your approval to authorize this variance to allow this work to go forward. The pours may very well be done in the morning so that the concrete can be worked in over the rest of the day. We discussed at length during the Committee of the Whole meeting 7 days ago some of the nuances associated with this, traffic control, that would be in place, flagging and such as that. But this is basically an amendment to what we would normally allow to accommodate the constraints on the site and the volume of concrete that we're talking about. But again, it would be 8 disruptions during a 3-month period.
I think it's Mr. Ron Fennell.
Mr. Mayor, this is in Ward 7 on Oakdale Road, just a block to the south of Highland Parkway. It is a heavily trafficked corridor during the morning drive when the request for poor exemption is being considered. I'd urge the department to take great care at being sensitive to both the school schedule. I'm even open to Saturdays as an option, but the morning drive time for that corridor is very heavy currently, and I just want to be sure that our traffic engineer and our department that's granting the permits are sensitive to what is already a challenged corridor. But at the same time, we welcome the development of this project right there on what has been a fallow site for a long time, and hopefully that'll bring greater value to the area. But just as long as we can be sensitive to that morning drive time. We have a prominent school with Whitfield Academy nearby, morning in and out, primarily coming from Atlanta proper into the Smyrna area and back out. Those parents are very focused on getting those kids there on time. Apart from that, with that stipulation and with our team understanding that challenge, I hereby move approval of item 2015-403, approval of the extended work hours for the construction of the Homeland Self-Storage Facility at 5218 Oakdale. It's a 1.4 acre tract in land lot 688, 5218 Oakdale Road by WLM Contracting.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. Approved 6-0. Item 8 is commercial building permits. We have none. 9 is consent agenda. Mr. Jones, will you please read the consent agenda for?
Yes, sir, Mayor. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. Item A is approval of the November 16th, 2015 Mayor and Council meeting minutes. And item B is approval of the special called minutes for November 30th, 2015.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor of the motion, please vote.
You got it, Susan.
Approved 6-0. Committee reports. We'll start tonight with Mr. Ron Fennell.
Mr. Mayor, in light of the hour, I'd abbreviate my report by just recognizing it's the holiday season. Last Friday, my not-for-profit group, Team Georgia, offered up our annual reminder of the travel season, and we urge people to be responsible of the use of alcohol. If you happen to be involved with a group of people and somebody is imbibing, please designate a driver, or you may call 1-800-AAA-TOW-TO-GO. Or you could call one of the local cab companies. Many of them have free ride home programs. Please be safe during the holiday season.
Mr. Wade Lineker.
No report. I yield.
Ms. Susan Wilkerson.
I have a couple of things I would like to talk about. Mary Moore from the library was sick tonight and could not do her report, so I'm going to read what she had sent me, the announcements for the library. The Friends of the Smyrna Library are celebrating their 25th anniversary with a special holiday party on Saturday, December 12th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Smyrna Library. The Pebblebrook High School Orchestra will provide holiday music and accompaniment for a reading of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." A silent auction of gift baskets includes food, jewelry, luggage, books, movies, and decorative items. There will be tons of food, friends, and fun. Everyone is welcome. And that's from Mary. The second thing I'd like to talk about was the tree lighting this past week on Tuesday night, that it was threatening to rain all day, and part of the ceremony outside was canceled, but I just want to comment on what a fabulous event it was. There were tons of people that showed up, both people singing outside and inside the gyms, and very well attended. attended. And I also want to thank all the staff from Parks and Rec and from Public Works that work really hard to make that event happen with getting all the lights on all the trees outside. Everybody really loves that event. And in addition, there was a lot of other volunteers there working that night, from Keep Smyrna Beautiful to parks people. So it was just fabulous, and I just wanted to thank the staff and all the volunteers. With that, I yield.
Mr. Corky Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to remind everybody that Santa Claus is at the Welcome Center, or Aunt Fanny's cabin, every weekend between now and Christmas. Please come visit us or come visit Santa. Bring your children, and just like for you to come. Thank you.
Terry Nulowich.
Thank you. It is the Christmas season. I hope everyone's having a good time. It's also the second night of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to everyone who is celebrating the Festival of Lights tonight. And it is not too late to support Shop with a Hero. It's taking place this Friday. With that, I yield.
Ms. Andrea Bluestein.
Don't forget, even though you may not be able to attend on the 18th, they will be accepting coats for at least a week, and I'd love to see us have a nice amount of coats to be able to donate to charity for the winter season. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving, and now you're right in the middle of Hanukkah, and we're going on to Christmas. So, thank you. That I yield.
Mr. Mike Jones.
Nothing to report, sir.
Mr. Cochran. Terry Grant. Do we have anyone signed up for citizens input? I don't have the sheet. No one signed up. Okay. If there's no other business to be brought before this body, I declare this meeting adjourned at 9:52. What's this? That decision. I wanted you